Howdy, mates. Top of the afternoon to ya. Today marks Friday, August 8th, 2025. I've made a return to making a film once again after a little while. I've made my return during my off time to go back to Oregon. And we are just now getting within the Cascade range. And it's quite marvelous. I will say, this particular tree that I want to point out is unique to the region. This is known as white bark pine, which typically has a gray to brown bark. But uniquely, in terms of the bundles of the needles, there's usually 5 in each specific bundle itself. Not many other pines do that. And I believe for this time of the year, we're not necessarily going to see the cones. Because typically, once the cones reach maturity, they mostly disintegrate. They don't just fall to the ground like most other conifers do. But usually, white bark pine you'll find in areas greater than 5,000 feet in elevation. They take a long time to grow, over 200 years, as a matter of fact, for them to reach that full maturity. But speaking of the concept that I'm only producing films once in a blue moon, let's just say the color blue is very relevant in this particular film, besides the sky. So without further ado, let me show you. Okay, turning, and here we are. Welcome to Crater Lake National Park, which has been an established park since 1903. It's been around for some time. Now, even though the specific formation isn't necessarily a crater, it's actually an example of a caldera. You may be wondering what exactly is the difference between the two. Well, usually a crater is an occasion in which a meteor, for example, strikes the ground and it creates this large cavity, more or less. But it seems that based on geologic evidence produced by people, this is more of a caldera. So what that implies is at one point in this region, there was a stratovolcano here that was actually known as Mount Mazama. And there came a point that the eruption, which occurred approximately 7,700 years ago, had essentially caused the volcano to collapse in itself, more or less. And therefore, it created this large cavity as a result. And what's actually surprising, too, is some of the natural areas surrounding here have several several feet's worth of volcanic ash accumulated in the area. And you can still see remnants of it as well. but most of the bedrock that is here includes basalt, as well as even bits and pieces of pumice, and of course, volcanic ash itself. So a lot of the rock here is mostly igneous, and it's also very lightweight because of the volcanic nature of the rock itself, and the fact that there were a multitude of gas bubbles. But just down there is the famous cinder cone known as Wizard Island, which it was given that name back in 1885. It's a great example of a cinder cone. So basically, upon the collapse of the mountain or the volcano itself, there were still vents going on, or tunnels, you could say. And basically what happened was the tunnel rose above the water, and it eventually contributed to the formation of Wizard Island. This is so darn cool, you know, to be out here in its presence. Quite humbling, if I say so myself. Alright, you guys, have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your day, week, month, whichever. And of course, Journey on a Journey is onwards. See you later.